You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Well, that's...
We got there in the end.
We did. We did.
I think it might have been my internet connection. Might have been part of the problem.
Oh, okay.
But we had to do it on the mobile app. I couldn't work out how to add you on my desktop.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
I find Facebook is more complicated now than it
yes,
used to be. Yeah, it's become really complicated.
yes. Well, it's good to see you.
You too.
It doesn't seem like a week since we did TikTok live.
I know. It was just on Monday, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, when did we do it? Yeah.
Last Saturday, I think we did it.
Oh,
yeah.
In my head it was Monday. That shows you what kind of week I've had. Oh yeah, Saturday. So yeah, nearly a week.
Wow. So I'm just checking. Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah. Let's give it a few minutes and see who comes.
Yeah.
And then
so I think we'll do similar, Maureen.
Pardon?
Shall we do something similar to last week?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome, Tim. Tim McGowan has joined us.
Hi, Tim.
He says, "Dream team."
Wait till Thursday to say that, Tim. Oh, man.
Yeah, so it's Thursday. Yeah, so the concert. Yeah, it's coming up soon.
I know. I'm a bit scared. How are you feeling?
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. But I'm also like, oh, but I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who are joining us, it's this Thursday evening.
Yeah.
The 8th of May in the Duncairn in Belfast.
Yeah.
Kenyan.
I'm going to close my utility room door, sorry.
Yes. I'm just going to share on my author page.
Oh, sorry about that. All right. Will we get started and then maybe people will join us then?
Yes. I think, Maureen, you can share. I'm going to share to my author page.
Okay.
The live, and then I think you can share on your Facebook
page. Yeah, I've just done that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll be live on everything.
Yeah.
Let me just see if I can get my author page going.
Do you want to go live on your author page? Is that possible, or?
No, I just share it.
Okay.
And it works.
Okay, good.
There we go. On my author page. Oh,
hi everyone, come on in, come on in.
Yes, welcome, welcome. There we go. On my author page. Oh, yeah, that should do it.
Okay, perfect.
So, yes, maybe we should start by talking about why we're here, Maureen, what we're doing together and why we're doing it.
Yeah, do you want me to? Okay, yeah, so we are part of Circle of Change, and it's a group of people from Belfast and surrounding areas who have come together in the last 6 months, maybe, and we've been having dinner once a month and sharing our stories. And then from our stories, we have identified areas in Belfast and issues that we would like to help fund or tackle. Yeah, so I came to this not quite knowing what to expect, but I was also very ready to be part of the change. I talked about this last Saturday about how a lot of the videos have gone viral on TikTok for me have been the videos about racism. So I speak a lot about it. I haven't done as much recently because I'm exhausted and it's quite a triggering topic. But racism is one of the things that came up for us. And I'm glad it did because it's allowing me to be part of the change. Oh, it's allowing me to be part of the change. Somebody's saying that they can't hear me. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can.
Okay. It's allowed me to be part of the change for something that I'm very passionate about. Something else that came up is mental health, which I'm probably more passionate about that than racism, just because I think racism is rooted in mental health issues and also in just our needs not being met. So we feel like we have to villainize other people in order for those needs to be met. Yeah, and then the other thing that came up is shared humanity and shared spaces. So people who are creating spaces or are working to create space for humanity, for everybody to be treated as human. So we're fundraising. We are hoping to raise about £20,000 in the whole group, within the whole group. And myself and Tony were like, let's do a fundraising event. So we need people to come to the event. The tickets are free, and you can just give however much you want to give. No pressure at all, but we're just trying to kind of make Belfast and Northern Ireland a better place to live in, which is pretty good already, but yeah.
That you describe it perfectly, Maureen. Yeah, for me, the thing that attracted to me to Circle of Change was the telling our stories, sharing our stories with one another.
Yeah.
And as we've shared our stories with one another, it's helped us to decide what are the issues that we want to support through the fundraising.
Yeah.
And I think those three issues are really important to me too: addressing racism, promoting good mental health, and bringing people together to recognize their humanity across divides.
Yeah, because that's all it is, isn't it? Like, if I see you as human, I'm not going to think that you're better than me or I'm better than you. Does that make sense? Like, we all have this grounding place. So yeah, I was saying to Tony and the TikTokers last week that I was quite disillusioned with white men, because I've had a lot of harm come from white men in the last few years. But actually going to this, where majority of the people are white men, which is amazing because usually it's women that attend stuff like this. So being there and hearing their stories really humanized them for me, and also just give me a lot of empathy. That's not to say that I don't acknowledge the privilege that white men have, and how that can be used and abused, but it's also helped me to humanize white men. So it was a learning and a humbling experience for me.
So as a result of our kind of thoughts and plans for fundraising, we've decided to come together and share songs and stories of hope.
Yeah.
And so on Thursday evening, the 8th of May, in the Duncairn Arts and Culture Centre in North Belfast, Maureen will be singing beautiful songs, and I will be reading extracts from my book Paperboy. And we decided we'd call the event Kenyan Girl and Paperboy.
Yeah.
So this evening we're just going to give you a little taste of. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give you a little taste of some of the readings and some of the songs, and I suppose maybe a taste of the sort of conversation we're having together as well.
Yeah.
So, Maureen, would you like to begin with one of your songs this time?
Sure, I'll do that. So this feels like it's been the song for the concert. So and this is what was I made for?
Yeah.
I used to float, now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now what I was made for. What was I made for? Take a drive. I was so next to you. I felt so alive. Turns out I'm not real. Something you paid for. What was I made for? 'Cause I don't know how to feel, but I wanna try. I don't know how to feel. Someday I might. Someday I might. Did it end? All the enjoyment I'm sad again. Don't tell my boyfriend it's not what he is made for. What was I made for? 'Cause I don't know how to feel, but I wanna try. I don't know how to feel. Someday I might. Someday I might. Can't forget how to be happy. Something I know, but something I can't be. Something I wait for. Something I'm made for. Something I'm made for.
Thank you, Maureen. What a beautiful song, and you sing it with such heart.
Thank you.
So I'm going to begin. I'm going to read a little section from my memoir, Paperboy, and it's about my experience of growing up in Belfast during the Troubles, and when I was 11, 12 years old, and I was a wee paperboy up the Shankle, and this is
Oh,
This is, I've just fallen over.
okay.
Yeah. And this is about my impression of the walls, or the peace walls that were going up around me at that time. I hated fences, so I did. They made life very difficult for a paper boy. The more my customers erected fences between each other, the more walking, running, and jumping I had to do. This was particularly problematic and painful on a Friday night when my Dr. Martin boots were concealing coins from hoods and robbers. There were four main types of fences: wire fences, hedges, wooden fences, and walls. Wire fences were the easiest to negotiate because there was usually a convenient hole in which to stick your foot for support as you climbed over to next door. However, if you weren't careful, this foothold could bend permanently into the shape of your boot. A customer could become suspicious and peek out through their net curtains to try to catch you red-footed and tell you to stop being such a lazy wee hallion, or else they would tell Al Mac, the newsagent. Hedges were the next easiest to get over because most would usually have sufficiently sturdy inner foliage to support the slight weight of a paperboy as you scaled their heights en route to the house next door. However, if you started to make a noticeable gap in the hedge, there were similar dangers of getting caught as with wire fences. The only difference was that at least with hedges, there was the possibility that fresh leaves might eventually grow over your misdemeanors. I found I also had to face certain moral dilemmas of hedges. At some times of the year, stamping on the leaves would risk squashing many caterpillars underfoot, and as the only pacifist paperboy in West Belfast, I did not want to be responsible for the extermination of any of God's wee creatures. Wooden fences were more of a hazard for two reasons. First of all, they were generally covered in rough, sharp shards of wood that would stab your hands as you gripped on to jump over. You would end up getting wee scalps in your fingers that got all infected and swollen, so you couldn't practice your violin, and your daddy would have to poke the wee scalps out with a sharp needle, and you'd have to try very hard not to cry because you were too big for crying by this time. The second problem was that most wooden fences up the Shankill were very cheap and fragile and couldn't support the weight of even a small paperboy. After several incidents where I caused damage that I managed to blame on Petra, the local Labrador, I avoided any further attempts to put boot to wood. The biggest challenges of all, however, for a paperboy was the brick or concrete wall. If such walls weren't too high, they were quite easy to jump over or sit on and swing over, but if they were very high, you had no other option but to walk around them. However, if the walls were at medium height, which you thought you might find easily scalable, you might make a serious misjudgment and end up colliding with hard and rough red brick, tearing your trousers, scraping your knees and elbows, and maybe even ending up in the Royal for stitches. Of course, some of my customers had no fences at all, or just a little low row of flowers dividing them from their next door neighbours. They always seemed to be the friendliest or poorest of my customers. They either didn't want to be separated from their neighbours, or they couldn't afford to be. On the other hand, I noticed that for some of my customers, fences were very important indeed. They tended to be the rudest or the richest of my clientele, or the ones with big snarling dogs. Mr. Spark from number 13 had high fences on either side of his house. Of course, he had greyhounds, but they couldn't jump that high. So I just knew that he didn't want anybody next or near to him. Good fences make good neighbours, he would proclaim. I don't think Mr. Black was aware that he was quoting from a Robert Frost poem I was studying in my English class. I was certain that he had no idea that the line he was quoting was supposed to be what my English teacher called an ironic poetic device. I began to notice that people who made comments like good fences make good neighbours always seem to be the sort of characters you really wouldn't want to live beside anyway. Another two of my customers, the Morrisons and the Smiths, had a real fence war going on. It started out as just one small wire fence between the two houses. Then the Morrisons put up a new wire fence, but without consulting the Smiths. So the Smiths put up another higher wire fence on their property. These fences were starting to look like the maze prison. In response, the Morrisons added a wooden fence that was even taller than their neighbour's higher wire fence. Then the Smiths vengefully erected a 6-foot wall with a 6-foot wooden fence on top of it. In the end, neither side were getting any sun on their nasturtium borders anymore. All this reminded me again of that poem from English class which said, "Something there is that doesn't love a wall." Maybe Robert Frost had been a paperboy too. I always enjoyed studying poems about war and walls much more than Shakespeare, because at least these poems were about everyday ordinary life that I could relate to. Of course, there were even bigger walls in the city than those between my customers. In fact, we were brilliant at walls in Belfast. They were going up everywhere, higher and higher all around me. For every inch that I grew, the walls surrounding me got 6 feet higher. Ever since the start of the Troubles, they'd been putting up walls between Protestant and Catholic streets to stop us from killing each other. Of course, it didn't work because ever since they built them, we had been slaughtering each other even more. Most people on both sides, however, thought the walls between us were a good idea, and it wasn't very often Catholics and Protestants agreed on anything. I suppose the walls made me feel safer because they helped me believe it would be harder for the other side to get at me. When the walls were put up, you couldn't see the other side anymore, and they couldn't see you, and that was better for everybody. And if you wanted to show the other side how much you hated them, at least you had an obvious place to go to throw stones and bricks over at them. You didn't have to look at exactly what damage you'd done to the other side, but at least could be pretty sure you'd hurt them. Everyone called them peace walls, which I thought was funny, but not funny, haha. It was very strange, I thought, to call these walls peace walls because there hadn't been any of them before the Troubles when we had peace. The parts of Belfast that had the most peace didn't have peace walls. And the places in the city with the biggest peace walls were the streets where Catholics and Protestants had lived together previously, before they started burning each other out, like the Springfield Road where my father grew up and where my granny had got out just in time. Everywhere else in the world that had peace didn't have peace walls. However, in my history class, I learned about another big wall in another city, the Berlin Wall, which separated the goodies in West Germany from the baddies in East Germany, although my granny continued to insist that all Germans were still baddies. The Berlin Wall was, as far as I could tell, a huge curtain made of iron, and apparently it was going to be there forever. Not like our peace walls in Belfast, which were only going to be here until the Troubles were over. So that's a wee story from Paperboy, Maureen, just about how I saw those walls going up.
Yeah, there's so much there. Like, I think what really stood out for me today is the gaslighting of the peace walls being called peace walls, you know, because clearly they were not bringing peace. And yet, you know, the powers that be were like, these are peace walls.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I love about being a parent. Children will always pick out those things. Children are so emotionally intelligent. They can always tell when there's gaslighting or manipulation. So I'm not surprised that that stood out for you as a kid.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do Imagine. It's a cover of the Elton John song by Emily Sandé. try. No happy loss above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries or walls. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us in the world that is one. Imagine your possession. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of men. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, no, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maureen. It's just lovely to hear your voice singing these songs on my Facebook. Anytime I do live, it's just me reading stuff. So this is beautiful to hear your voice.
It's beautiful to hear your stuff as well. It's so good. It just, again, I can see the little boy running around Belfast delivering the newspapers.
That wee boy.
Yeah. You were so cute.
So I've just put in the comments the link if anyone's watching that would love to come along and see us do this live next Thursday night in the Duncairn. That's there's the poster advertising the event. Kenyan Girl and Paperboy. Tickets are free. You can book them on Eventbrite on the link that's in the comments, and we encourage you to come along and make a donation to towards the Circle of Change, the projects we'll be supporting. Also next Thursday night, I'm actually giving a gift to everyone who gives more than £10, a signed copy of my book Belfast Gate, to everyone who gives more than £10 as a gift, as a thank you.
Amazing.
So those will be, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. There will also be people auctioning off reflexology treatments,
Yes.
and I think there's a yoga class. I think there's I forgot everything else.
There's some coaching, and there's some beautiful artwork.
Yes, loads of art. So please come. It's going to be amazing. I think my cat wants to be let out. Let me.
Yes, I've heard the wee cat meowing. Yeah, so as Maureen was saying, at the event on Thursday night, as well as Maureen singing the songs and myself reading from the books, other members of our Circle of Change group are offering things for auction. So there'll be, I think, aromatherapy, there'll be coaching, there'll be some beautiful artwork from Tommy. So yeah, so there'll be an auction there as well. So it'll be a good night. It's also BYOB, so bring your own bottle. So
Yay!
it's that kind of event. It'll be relaxed and enjoyable. Yeah, we
Yeah,
hope
yeah,
we'll have good fun. So as I said, the tickets, you can get tickets by clicking on the link in the comments
yeah.
here. So I thought maybe then I'd read uh, another two little sections, but I'll separate them. They're about my experience of going up the Black Mountain, up the mountain when I was a wee boy living on the Ballygomartin Road. And the first one is about, I suppose it's about my experience of learning the hard way that I don't want to hurt people by
Oh.
throwing by throwing stones at them. And so this is a hard lesson that I learned when I was 12. And let me see if I can find this section. Um, yeah, piece in the papers. Yeah, here we go. There was one day in particular up the fields, this is up the Black Mountain, that I would never forget. It was a spring day, and I was up there with my big brother, collecting dandelion leaves for Snowball, our obese albino rabbit. On the way back down the lower fields, we met Roberta and Mandy, two wee girls from our estate, who were happily taking turns on the rope swing. Roberta Ross and Mandy Brown were two older girls who lived in the next street. Their street was the one that led you up the fields. It was on a steep hill, so it was hard work to carry bonfire wood up there in the summer, but great fun to slide down on the lid of a biscuit tin in the winter. The rope swing the girls were playing on was slung from the tallest tree in the lowest field. It was far more exciting than the aging vandalised playground swings in Woodvale Park. The park used to have a wonderfully sickening roundabout and a cold steel slide as well, but it all got wrecked in the troubles. Meanwhile, up the fields, this magnificent swing was like something from the adventures of Tom Sawyer. Made of thick, strong rope borrowed by a dad from the shipyard, it had a huge knot at the bottom to sit on. When you fell off the tree swing, you usually ended up in the Royal for stitches. Roberta's father was a milkman who got up very early in the morning, and Mandy's mother to keep fit with the plump pensioners in the church hall. Mandy fancied my big brother, so the two wee girls giggled as we approached them at the swing. My big brother provoked a lot of reactions in me, but giggling was not one of them. I just couldn't understand girls. Hiya, said Mandy, swinging happily. Roberta giggled. Bertie, said my big brother. He spat out his Wrigley's gum in a very manly way. Mandy fancies you, announced Roberta indiscreetly. My big brother did not reply directly. Instead, he picked up a small stone and fired it at the bough of the tree, knocking off a small piece of bark. Mandy jumped a little, but looked impressed. Throwing stones was a sign of virility in West Belfast. Roberta and Mandy weren't cheeky or wee millies or anything, and I thought they would be easy to impress. So I picked up a larger stone and also threw it at the poor embattled tree. But my aim wasn't as good as my big brother's, so I missed the tree, and Mandy had to duck as my stone flew past her head into the field, missing its target by several miles. The two girls giggled again, but this giggle had a different tone to the one they had given in response to my big brother. He was a genius at aiming footballs and rugby balls and cricket balls and stones. I was only good at aiming newspapers through letterboxes. As if to consolidate my humiliation, my big brother then picked up a large, impressive piece of cement from the remains of last year's bony. There was still white ash on it, which covered his hands and his Wrangler jacket. He now looked like Auntie Mabel after she'd been mixing flour to make buns for the soldiers, and the girls looked at him respectfully. No mocking giggles for my big brother. He hurled the lump of cement with both hands, and the projectile ploughed into the bough of the tree and knocked off several small and hopeless green shoots. The rope swing shuddered, and Mandy seemed to shudder too at this display of masculinity. I knew Instinctively, it was my turn. Not to be outdone, I looked around the debris of last year's bonfire. There were some rusty springs that were all that remained of the old mattress that Mrs. Porter had given us when her husband died, but I realised these would be too small to make an impact. "What's that you've got in your pocket?" asked Mandy, who'd suddenly noticed the dandelion leaves falling out of the pockets of my trousers. "It's dandelion leaves for our snowball, so it is," I replied innocently. The giggling erupted once more. "Dandelion leaves make you wet the bed, you know, wee boy," taunted Mandy. There then ensued a musical chorus of "wet the bed, wet the bed." It didn't make any sense. How could a weed from up the fields impact on my bladder while I was in my bed? Maybe I'd missed that page in my biology book. Maybe that's what made Snowball pee on his straw so much. I hadn't wet the bed for years, although I'd recently spilled some Lucozade on the sheets when I was in the bed with chickenpox. Anyway, now I understood why my big brother wasn't carrying any dandelion leaves in his pockets. He had plucked dozens of leaves, but they'd all been stuffed in my pockets. I was clearly intended to be the beast of burden for all potentially embarrassing materials. By this stage, I was becoming desperate to save face. I needed a big stone, and I needed one now. I suddenly spied a red brick from the debris of last year's bonfire. It had been used to hold down the sides of our tent the night before the 11th night, when I had been allowed to sleep beside the bonfire rather than inside it. I lifted the heavy half brick and I flung it at the tree. Once again, however, it missed its intended destination, and once again Mandy had to duck. As she fell off the swing into the ashy dust below, the brick continued on its tragic trajectory, and it hit poor Roberta Ross on the head. "Oh," said my big brother, and he disappeared in an instant, like a summarily sacked paperboy. Mandy was now lying on the ground, holding her scratched leg and crying. Roberta looked up at me with a trickle of blood on her forehead, and as she stared at me, the water came to her eyes too. I had red brick on my hands. I froze on the spot. I had made two wee girls cry. I had made two wee girls bleed. I was in trouble. This was the worst thing I had done in my life. Worse even than stealing sweetie mice from the youth club tuck shop when the minister's wife's back was turned to open a new box of potato, cheese and onion. I felt guilt and fear in equal measure, and I was ashamed. "You're dead," shouted Mandy. I couldn't disagree. Her dad's going to kill you," she continued. "Not if my dad kills me first," I thought. What had happened to me? I had turned from rabbit nurturer to terrorist in seconds. Roberta just looked at me pitifully and cried until the blood and tears blended on her cheeks. She didn't shout or scream at me or anything, and that just made it worse. What am I going to do? I thought. I had to consider the right course of action. Roberta's dad was a milkman, so he was probably a hard man because milkmen were legitimate targets in Belfast. But it was the afternoon, so he's probably still in bed. Having evaluated all of my options, I took a moral decision. I ran away. I didn't set foot in that wee girl's street for 2 years in case her dad got me. I had to find an alternative route to the July bonfire through Mr. Beanie's hedge, and I missed a whole winter season of street siding on my biscuit tin lid. I had a recurring nightmare of Roberta's dad coming to our front door with an angry face, shaking a milk bottle in my face and threatening to split my head like his wee girls. But it never came to pass. Any hope, however, of career progression from Paperboy to Milk Boy was shattered. Interestingly, my big brother displayed great loyalty by not revealing any of the details of the assault to my parents, so I got off with it. I felt guilty though. I still feel guilty. But somehow I learned something that day up the fields. The bloodied face of Roberta Ross was unforgettable. I worked out that I didn't want to do anything like that ever again. Sure, there were enough people drawing blood in Belfast, and too many of them seemed to enjoy it. So I chose a different path, the path of the pacifist paperboy. It all happened up the fields, the same fields where I watched Peace from a Distance later on in 1976. And I'll read that wee bit at the end. Maureen?
Oh, so many feels. I feel like your brother set you up.
Well,
with with the leaves, he knew what was gonna happen.
he knew.
But there's just so much there, isn't there? But I'm gonna do I Didn't Know My Own Strength by Whitney Houston.
Oh, lovely.
It's a bit of a funny thing about you not knowing your own strength, but it's also a song about, you know, when you feel you think you can't make it, like you can, and you know, you for the 2 years, I'm pretty sure you were terrified. But you know, you got through it. And I'm so glad that that man didn't come looking for you, even though he had all the right to.
Hope he's not watching.
Bluetooth mode.
Sorry, I haven't done this song live ever, so.
Here we go. This is a first. Brilliant. It's a first.
I had nowhere to run, I had nowhere to go. Outside of my dream, it would be the end of me. I thought I'd never make it through. I had no hope to hold on to. I thought I would break. I didn't know my own strength, and I crashed out and I tumbled, but I did not crumble. I got through all the pain. Didn't know my own strength. Like a healer, I pick myself back up, hold my head high. It's not built to break. Didn't know my own strength. Sorry, I need to. I opened my heart. I found the light to light. I learned the dark. All that I need here inside me. I thought I'd never find a way. I thought I'd never make a way. I thought I would pray. I didn't know my own strength, and I crashed out and I tumbled, but I did not crumble. I go through all the pain. I didn't know my own strength, but my darkest hour, my fear, pick myself back up, hold my head high. It's not built to break. I didn't know my own strength. I didn't know my own strength, and I crashed out and I tumbled, but I did not crumble. was not built to break. Oh, no. I got to know my own strength. That was terrible.
Oh, no, at all. That was
Thanks
lovely.
for your patience.
That was beautiful. And you know that one of the it makes me think about one of the issues that we're trying to support through the circle of change is mental health, mental well-being, mental health.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's
and
strength within. Yeah.
yeah, the strength within you. And I think, yeah, I have so much to say about it, but I've gone through quite a lot. And in the last few years, I literally thought I couldn't make it. But I feel like with every situation, whatever I've gone through before has built the resilience.
Yeah.
And so about a year and 3 months ago, I got separated. My marriage ended, and I never thought I was raised to be a wife. Like a Kenyan girl is like, you know, a Kikuyu girl, a Christian girl. Like I was raised to be a wife. And then when my marriage ended, I was like, who am I? Like, what am I? And I didn't think I could do it. And a year and 3 months later, I'm like, huh. Do you know? And I feel like everything led up to like this moment. And it's not just for this. I feel like in the future, if anything else more tragic happens, I have the resilience
Yes.
to, you know, and my faith keeps me going. It looks different than it did 10 years ago when I was deeply entrenched in fundamentalism. But I still have faith. I have faith in people. I have faith in myself. I have faith in just getting up and trying it again, one day at a time, and in a higher power that is kind and gentle.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You're preaching it. You're still preaching it in a different way, though.
Yeah, I know. Like you can't take the church and the preacher out of me. Oh God.
Good for you. Good for you. Okay, so to finish with, I'm going to read just a final section. I'm back up the mountain again, but it's a very different experience, and this is, I suppose, this was one of my most profound experiences as a child when it came to peace building and seeing what's possible and how ordinary people can come together and try to change the world, try to change what's going on in the community, to stand up against violence and to stand for peace. And it's a story about the peace people, the women of Belfast who came together across the divide in the mid-1970s. And I was there as a wee boy watching that. I'm very influenced by it. So
hopefully I won't cry.
It was the 28th of August, 1976, and there had been no big stories or elections for a while, just the usual marches and murders. While the newspapers were usually a little lighter in the summer, on this day there were shoulder-breaking extra pages. Al Mac had arrived late with the delivery because the crowds were still causing a traffic jam on the Shankill Road. Although he was shouting and effing and blinding even more than usual, there was no danger of Al Mac's van being hijacked today. For this was the day that the Catholic women of the Falls Road would walk across the peace line, and when the Protestant women of the Shankill Road would join them to walk together for peace. This was unheard of. I first stumbled upon the suggestion that this miracle might actually happen on a recent front page of one of my belly tellies. I was so shocked when I read this news that I stopped on the pavement mid-delivery and my paper bag dropped off my shoulder, landing perilously close to a recent dirty deposit made by Petra the Labrador in our street. I wasn't used to miracles. Protestants and Catholics didn't mix deliberately, unless they were rioting at the peace line or arguing on the television news, unless there were petrol bombs or politicians present. We weren't allowed to live in the same street. We weren't allowed to go to school together. We weren't allowed to get married. And we even got blown up in different pubs. And after that, we would be buried in different graveyards. My grandest family were buried in an old cemetery that was divided between the two sides. When I went to visit my dead relatives, I noticed there were no Virgin Marys on our side of the cemetery. I wondered if the corpses were building peace walls underground, but I was pretty sure that wouldn't matter quite so much down there. Of course, sometimes Catholics and Protestants couldn't avoid ending up in the same place together, like when all the kids from the Falls and the Shankill had to go to the Cooper Street clinic to get a polio vaccination. In the waiting room, the mothers would talk away to each other like everything was all right and agree that it was terrible all that was going on, so it wasn't. That was a small minority on both sides that was causing all the trouble, so it was. They would not dare to get any more specific for fear there would be an unhealthy exchange in a clinic with such large needles present. But although we queued up for polio injections on the peace line, that wasn't the same as marching together for peace in public. You were supposed to march against them, not with them. On that sunny day, the front page of the Belfast Telegraph had a picture showing our mountain, the Black Mountain, rising behind a 25,000 strong throng of widely flared women in Woodvale Park. In the same picture, I could make out the trees in the park where my name was carved alongside that of the lovely Sharon Burgess. Elton John and Kiki D were at number one, but it seemed possible now that Sharon might go breaking my heart anyway. In the grainy image on the front page of the papers, I could see the fields on the slopes of the Black Mountain in the background where only a few hours ago I had sat and watched the huge rally for peace. I'd been a tiny dot up there behind it all. Most of the women in our street, including my mother, had decided to go to the rally. My mother said she would know some of the Catholic women from the Falls Road because she used to sew with them in the factory before the Troubles. The few women in the street who stayed behind that day were the ones who believed that God or the man they voted for, or both, would disapprove of marching for peace with Catholics. But for a brief interval that summer, they were the minority. Of course, most of the men stayed at home. It seemed that peace was women's work. Manning vigilante barricades, hijacking buses, and joining the UDA was for my gender. Titch McCracken, one of the other Paperboys, said, "You were only a real Ulster man if you were prepared to fight and die to keep Ulster British." I was prepared to defend the earth from an alien invasion, but that was as far as I was willing to go. As I climbed up the fields that day, I wondered why a boy could only watch peace. Reaching the higher fields, I was amazed at the sight of the crowds in Woodvale Park that afternoon and moved by the sound of singing and cheering. A strange mix of laughter and the refrain of "Abide with me" was bouncing off the Black Mountain that day. This was unbelievable. Unexpectedly, I found myself weeping. I was used to the echo of bomb blasts and gunfire. Were we really capable of this? It seemed a lot harder than fighting. This was the answer. The troubles would be over soon. One day the killing would stop. There would be no more bombs at the shops and no more soldiers on the streets. And everyone would agree that all the fighting had been a waste of life. I was living in hope. So it was. So that's my
Oh,
memory of the peace people. Can you visualize it, Maureen?
yeah,
Can you imagine it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You write so well. Like, it's hard not to visualize it. Like, um, and again, I just handed in an assignment, and I was, um, so I'm doing counseling, and one of the questions was, this man has come in for therapy, and, how would you help him? And I ended up touching on, toxic masculinity
Mm.
and how men are not expected to be soft. and to look for peace, and they're not expected to cry or to have, you know, empathy.
Yeah.
And as a mom of 3 boys, I am so intentional about allowing my boys to cry. There's no, oh, big boys don't cry, or what are you crying for? Cry. You know, one of my kids got his finger slammed on the gate the other week, and he must have cried for about 30-40 minutes, and I was just, it was, I wasn't allowed to cry, and I'm a girl, right? But I just ignored them and I kept crying. But I was getting to a point where I was just like, oh my God, stop, just stop crying. But I didn't say that. I was just like, it obviously still hurts, because it was, you know, it looked like the nail was gonna fall off. Yeah, and I just, you know, the fact that you thought as a little boy that a man had to be hard, and you could join the UDF and you could do all these things, but, you know, and that's what you saw mirrored for you as well, from the man who stayed at home that day. But imagine, and it was so powerful that the women went out, right? But imagine if everybody went out, maybe peace would have been achieved sooner. Do you know what I mean? But I love that you were like, no, I'm supposed to be hard, and you know, but I'm not going to do that. I love that.
Well, do you know that you've just reminded me, talking about, you know, the men stayed at home that day.
Yeah.
I read a little bit of that on the radio. It was on the radio in the UK a few years ago, and I got this letter from a woman who lived in England, but she'd grown up in Northern Ireland, and she told me about her late father, and she'd lived in Belfast, and her father went to the Peace March with the women, and she told me this story that he dressed up for it, and he wore a necktie. You know, he wore a jacket and a necktie, and he marched with the women. And he was from a Protestant area, and he came and he marched with some of the Catholic women. And at one stage, the Catholic women, all the women carried a banner saying which part of Belfast they were from. And the women from Andersonstown, West Belfast, the Catholic women from Andersonstown, their banner broke. The string broke on their banner. And she told me in this letter that her father gave them his tie. He took off his tie, and he tied up the banner together. And a few weeks later, I was in Peace House in Belfast, which is the house owned by the Peace people, and they have these beautiful big black and white photographs of that day. And there was a beautiful big black and white photograph of the women at the march, and you see the women of the Falls Road carrying the banner, and you can see that it's held up with a necktie in the photograph. It was incredible. It's incredible.
Oh my God.
So he was quite a man. He was quite a man, her father.
That's a man.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Because literally he was risking his life.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, the women were as well, but especially as a man, he would have been such an easy target.
Yeah.
And imagine the ripple effect that had on the generations of his family to come.
Yes, indeed. And I've told that story to lots of people. You know, so what he did is still remembered. You know.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. Oh, right. I just need a bit of water before I do my
have a glass of water before we finish. So if you're watching, I've also just put in the comments. You know, obviously this is a fundraiser, so we're raising money for Circle of Change. So put the link to the Just Giving site also in the comments below as well. I'm also going to put this on Maureen. I'm also going to put this on my YouTube channel.
Perfect.
So you know, so we'll put this recording of the live on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
If you're watching on YouTube, the links to your free tickets and the links to make the donation you'll see in the title, you know, below the YouTube video.
I can send you I can download the one from last Saturday.
Yes.
And send it to you, and you can see which one is better quality as well.
We could use both. Yeah.
Whichever one you see is better quality as well. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So you mentioned miracles quite a bit when you were reading, and this is Miracle by Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. Now, I hope I can do it. We'll give it a go. We pray with no proof anyone could hear. In our hearts a joyful song we barely understood, but we are not afraid. Although we know there's much to fear, we won't move in mountains long before you come. Oh, yeah, there can be miracles when we believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to keep. Who knows what miracles you can achieve when you believe? Somehow you will. You will when you believe. Oh, in this time of fear, we're so often losing. Hope seems like a summer to swiftly flown away. But now I'm standing here, my heart's so full I can't explain. Secret thing and speaking words I never thought I'd say. There can be miracles when you believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to believe. Just one miracle you can achieve when you believe. Somehow you will. You when you believe. There's no one coming when you are. And it is
Thank
That's
you.
gonna be a duet with my friend on the night. That's gonna be a
Oh,
duet with my friend on the night, so I won't be
brilliant.
rushing to do it. But I love that song, and it made me think of the women marching together, and I can
Yes.
imagine how many prayers they had prayed.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
sleepless nights, because like I find that after you give birth, you never sleep again. So imagine being in war, right? Being, not knowing what's going to happen next. I can't imagine what the people of Gaza right now are feeling, the mothers not being able to sleep. It's just, so your mother and the other women must have been like, oh my God, this is the hope. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful.
It will be better on the night.
I really look forward to that. And I love how you've chosen songs. These songs really, they really match the readings. It all sort of comes together really well, I think. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, I am very honored to be a part of this. Thank you.
Well, look forward to Thursday night, and
Yeah.
yeah, thank you everyone who's watched this live or who's going to watch it later.
Yeah.
It's Thursday evening, 8th of May, 7 o'clock for 7:30. Kenyan Girl and Paperboy in the Duncairn in Belfast to raise money for Circle of Change, and
Yeah.
we hope to see you there.
Yay. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you, Maureen. God bless you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.